Welcome to In Conversation. Joining us today are two representatives from the autism program from the Child Development Association in the Comox Valley. April Statz, who is the program manager, and Laurel Rankin, who is a behavioral consultant.
Yeah.
All right. What sort of credentials do you need to be a behavioral consultant?
Currently, there's higher requirements. So I've gone to school and completed a master's program, as well as I've done extensive supervision hours working with someone who's qualified and they're overseeing my work. But I also have national certification from the Behavior Analyst Certification Board. So they're the ones who kind of set the ethical standards and make sure that we continue to pursue education and we stay current in research related to autism.
Okay. Now, what would your bachelor's be in?
I did a bachelor's in psychology and criminal justice. Usually it's a bachelor's in any related field to psych or special education.
Okay.
And my master's was also in criminal justice with a focus on behavior analysis. What really certified my experience was the fact that I worked with really qualified supervisors who exposed me to a variety of different children, all different ages and skill levels, and I got the hands-on experience.
Okay. At what point did you, in your mind, make the leap from the criminal justice system to working with little children? Like, when did that transpire for you?
It happened when I grew up in the Lower Mainland, so I went to school at Douglas College and then needed to transfer to another institution. And when I did that transfer, I didn't have enough criminology courses to go into the criminal justice program. Okay. So at that point in time, I had to switch to a major in psychology, which was still a field I wanted to pursue, so it was okay. But it was kind of forced upon me rather than by choice. And then as I finished up my degree, my bachelor's degree, a girlfriend in one of my classes said, "Hey, come work with children with autism. I have this family, they're really awesome. I think you'd be a great fit." And at that point there was this much about autism in my child psych textbook. And so I really didn't know very much about it.
Okay.
And I went to work with that family. I fell in love with the type of therapy that they were utilizing. I fell in love with working with children and getting to connect with families on such a personal level, and so it kind of shifted my focus, and that's how I got involved in working with children with autism.
Okay.
Thank goodness. We're very happy to have her.
Now, April, do you hear stories like Laurel's often in terms of your consultants that you work with and the experts that you work with?
We're a small center, in Vancouver, and that they have a lot more behavior consultants. I'm pretty picky. Laurel is board certified, so that's what I want. I want top level consultants to work with. So Laurel is the one that works with our program.
Okay, so you only have one behavioral consultant. But how many children are in your program?
Right now we're upwards around 40, so it's a pretty big caseload. Yes, we try to treat her very nicely.
So the biggest part of my role is I identify goals for the children with their families, and then I create programs and support plans that our interventionists then implement to the children directly. So my role is a consultation piece. I'm not necessarily doing the direct implementation with the children. So I oversee the larger workings of the autism program. But oftentimes I'm down there getting in with the kids as well.
Okay. Well, and I guess that's in 2016, I guess that's a growing area where the families are more and more involved in the care of that child.
We certainly want that. Absolutely. That's one of the big pieces, is trying to bridge that gap. We know tricks and tips and strategies that work with these children, especially when we're working with them every day, the younger ones, and we want to make sure we pass that along to the families, because sometimes we hear, "Oh, he only does that at TAP." We call it the autism program. We call it TAP. We don't want to hear that. We want to make sure that we're getting them to generalize across environments, and we want them to be able to do that everywhere, not just at TAP.
What can you share about your experience that has been the most impactful for you professionally and personally?
That's a good question. I've had lots of really fantastic experiences. I've worked with many wonderful children and families over the years that I've been doing this. I've been working with kids with autism for about 10 years.
Oh, really?
And I started out as an interventionist and then furthered my education, got more experience so that I could become a behavior consultant. So my supervisor, Dr. Sarah White, who used to be the behavior consultant for the autism program, she is one person who's been really influential in how I've proceeded through my career.
Okay.
She grew up in the Comox Valley, so TAP has always been a part of her heart, and she wants to make sure good things happen there. But you know, sometimes it's not the big pieces, it's the small pieces. Like I'll go downstairs and a child will come up and tell me that they urinated in the toilet. And for me, that's a big deal. And it might not happen all the time, but they did it that first time. Or somebody comes up to me and says, can I have this toy to play with? Or do you want to play with me? And having those small moments are probably what's most rewarding. And like yesterday, I was sitting with a child and he said, I like you. And so that made my day. So it's those small pieces that I really enjoy.
One story I was thinking about, Laurel, that you were instrumental involved with this year was we had one family whose child was not sleeping and mom was not sleeping, and
that's not good.
it was really hard to watch, and mom was really struggling with trying to get everything done while being exhausted, and we actually Laurel designed a program and a plan with our other therapists at the center, and we went in, sent interventionists in that actually were there overnight for a few nights, and mom's sleeping now, and so's he.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Those success stories must make it all worthwhile.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, it doesn't matter how bad a day I'm having, at some point in time of my day, those children make me smile.
Okay. What are some, I was gonna say the biggest challenge, but I suspect there's more than one. What are some of the challenges that you are now faced with in your role as program director?
Well, one of the things that's been kind of a theme over the last couple of years that I've noticed is we're getting all of these children that are getting late diagnosis. So I'm getting a lot of kids right now in the 8 kind of to 12 age range that are just getting diagnosed. And with the funding here in BC, once they're over 6, they only get $6,000 a year for intervention and therapy.
That's not very much.
It's not very much. And in terms of trying to make those changes, you know, when they may be, like I said, 8 to 12 and they just got a diagnosis, that's potentially 12 years of getting along in the world, and there's habits and things we need to get in there and work on, skills and deficits. That's really tough on $6,000.
Why? What's the reason for the late diagnoses?
I'm not sure. I mean, Laurel, you kind of had a theory in terms of the school district.
Yeah, I think we're fortunate that the school districts are really aware, and especially in the Comox Valley, they want to make sure that the children are accessing the supports that they need.
Okay.
And knowing that the school districts are struggling with resources,
Absolutely.
they seem to be pushing towards diagnosis for kids with autism so that they can get the supports and the help that they need.
Okay. So is it just that there is a growing awareness on everybody's part of what the behaviors are to watch for kids that might be on the spectrum?
Certainly, I think so, and we're really trying as a community, as a whole, to look at the kids that are struggling and figure out why and get them the supports they need. So if there's a child struggling, they're drilling down and figuring out why is this happening, what can we do about it.
Now, you said you're carrying 40 children, and is there a wait list right now to get into the program?
I'm being very creative. I really don't like the word wait list.
Okay.
We have a very small area that we can provide service in, so we've got creative. We're doing some intervention right within a daycare. We're doing some intervention in the home.
Yeah.
We have one young lady that we provide intervention in her school. So we're getting creative with space and that. But I mean, eventually there's going to be a wait list. The 8 to 12 age range, the after school kids that come for those groups, were overloaded there.
Okay.
Yeah.
How are you handling that? How are you handling that in your role?
Well, it's ongoing. You reevaluate, but I think we're doing a good job. A lot of our older students, we try to work together to put them into groups.
Okay.
So then they're working on more of those social skills and the life skills, and the self-regulation piece too. That's really important for that age group. The younger kids, the programming is very individualized. Well, it's individualized to all of the students, but we're able to focus on programs that provide academic support, communication, social skills, life skills, play skills. Anything you name it, we can work on it. The sleep, the toileting, dressing, eating, all that fun stuff.
Now, having said that though about the after-school groups and trying to put them into groups, because that obviously makes their funding go further, we have some kids in that 8 to 12 age range or older that aren't ready for a group.
Oh, okay.
So then they need one-to-one intervention.
Right.
And again, that really stretches their funding.
Right.
Yeah.
Now, that's one of the challenges. What are some of the other challenges that you're coming across?
Finding time to do that parent support piece.
Okay.
That's a really big one. It's been my goal for a couple of years to really work on that. Laurel and I are very together and actively problem solving that and working that all the time. You know, we're doing the best we can, but we're always looking for other ways. There's just not enough of Laurel and time and funds to go around.
And we're also very conscious of the amount of things that parents have to deal with each day. And so parent support can be intensive. It's not strictly just having a meeting, let's talk about it, let's walk away from it. It usually involves the time and effort from the parents to really work on the goals and make sure that they generalize from TAP to the other environments in the child's life.
Oh, okay.
And so you have to be pretty sensitive to what might be going on in that family's life and what other things might be, like are there multiple siblings, you know, is there soccer practice?
Yeah.
We don't want to be interrupting that, so we're trying to brainstorm and work out what's the best fit for providing support to families.
And what works for one family may not work for the other, and we want to really make sure we're focused on that and you know, respectful.
Well, I'm just going to do a recap for our audience right now and let them know what they're watching. So currently you're watching In Conversation with the autism program based in the Comox Valley at the Child Development Association. With me is April Statz and Laurel Rankin. And April is the program manager, and Laurel, you're a behavioral consultant. And you've discussed some of the challenges, and it seems unending. And it seems like there is just so much pressure from all different sides. You've got parents that can't cope, you've got kids that can't cope, you've got a provincial government that has not come forward or increased funding in many, many years. And it just seems like, how do you get up out of bed every morning and face that? Like knowing that somewhere there's going to be a shortfall.
Because every day I get a hug. We have one young man that comes in, and that's his new habit in the last couple of weeks. He's got to come straight into the office to give me a hug. So,
that's
you know, it's those kind of
wonderful.
things. It's the one child maybe that doesn't often reference you, that all of a sudden looks at you and gives you a smile. Those are the things that make you keep coming back in.
Yeah, and on top of that, we have a really supportive team that we work with. And also the style of therapy that we implement breaks things down into the smallest parts to teach that to the child. And we're teaching it with support, and we're not just expecting that the child's going to move mountains that first day. So because our programs are broken down so significantly and so consistently, you can see the child's progress, and you can see the gains, and even though there's all that extra stuff happening, you're focusing on that moment and you're in the now, and it makes it worthwhile.
And I would imagine that as the child has little successes, that the parent as well starts to feel a bit of relief, and the shoulders come down and they can breathe a little easier. And do you find that the families are coming to you as a whole, like grandparents, and like, do you find that you're supporting all of the family?
We certainly want to, if they do. I mean, there are busy families, right? So a lot of times grandma or grandpa drops off or picks up, or you know, if we get the chance, certainly, but that's not always the case.
Okay. Now, you mentioned space. Now, if for anybody that's been down to the Comox Valley Child Development Association, it is a building on a corner, and then behind a little driveway, and then another little building. And in those two buildings, overall, the organization is supplying services for over 800 children. And that's a huge number. And even in the autism program, like, I've seen the space you're working in. It's a couple of classrooms, and you have 40 children that you're supporting. So space is an issue.
Yes, absolutely.
And you guys are busting at the seams. So is there a plan moving forward for some expansion?
Well, we're just a little bit excited about the fact that, yes, there is. So, and I've recently seen the floor plan and a little mock-up of what the outside will look like. So there is plans to build us a whole new space.
Wonderful.
Yeah, of course, a whole new space costs money.
Yes, which is where the capital funding program comes in. Okay.
Yeah, so that's where we're heading with that.
Okay.
In the meantime, we'll continue to be creative, and the community's been great. I mean, the school district letting us come in and do intervention right in the school is amazing. Yeah. But having our own space and being able to organize our stuff better for the kids would be great. Yeah.
Now, have you seen the drawings
I
of the
did
new
see
building?
them. Yeah.
Oh, look at the grin on your face.
I like anything new.
It's like Christmas all of a sudden.
It is, yeah.
And you should see the staff. I mean, we have wonderful staff, and they've all taken the drawings, and they're like, oh, we could tweak this here, and we could, they're very excited.
Yeah. And I think, like, what's super exciting for me is the fact that it's going to be a modern space, and hopefully with that will come new technologies, because the research in autism therapies is really showing that there's a lot we can do with technology, and we don't have to be so narrow-minded in how we implement things, right? There's more generalization with using technology and supports like that. So hopefully this environment will lend more to that, as well as we'll have a full kitchen and other spaces to do more life skills-based programming.
Okay. Now, in the last, I want to say 2 years, there was another building that was built, a very tiny little building, but it's absolutely adorable. And it's the sensory room, is that right?
Yes, yeah, we're very lucky to have the sensory room and use that as a resource for us. But more importantly, what's exciting for the CVCDA is that resource is available to the community, which is really exciting.
Now, for those of the audience that may not know what a sensory room is, can you give us a visual for it?
Oh,
it's a fun space.
There you go for it.
As an adult, I would go into it. There's a video screen, and there's funky lights, different things like that. Some cushions to play on, different obstacle pieces.
Bubble tubes. What are the lights? What are the lights they call fiber optics?
Fiber optics, yeah. Sounds, yeah. And it is a really useful space for our students. In terms of autism therapy, it's not the top priority for us, but it's definitely a beautiful space, and it's a really funky room, and members of the community can access it.
So, is it also a safe space for the kids that are on the spectrum? So it's like you go into the sensory room, and there's nothing in there they can hurt themselves on. So like it's a safe space,
Yeah.
And so different children want to access different aspects of it? Is that?
We tend to use it as reinforcement. So our program utilizes rewards and praise and different things for when the children do good work, do a good job. They demonstrate those appropriate expectations that we want to see, because children with autism don't have that internal motivation. So it's kind of like us going to work for a paycheck. We kind of set things up like that. So if you do this, then you get this. And so that's where a lot of our students access it. It's a fun break from doing some of the more difficult
intense
pieces
stuff,
that they have to do in their sessions. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, that sounds like fun.
It is. It totally is.
It's a good break for the adults and the kids. And it allows us opportunities to work on social skills and pieces like that in that space.
Right.
Turn taking, sharing, things like that.
Okay. So I have a question. If a parent suspects that the child has autism of some level, because it's a full spectrum, right? Do they have to wait for a diagnosis before they come to you, or can they just bring the child to you and say, please help?
The problem with that is that intervention is expensive, and
Okay.
without the diagnosis, they don't get the funding.
Okay.
So most families couldn't afford to do that. So
Okay.
a child that comes to us has their diagnosis.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean to say that they couldn't come to us as a resource of information.
Okay.
So if they wanted some information about what's best practice for strategies for children with autism, I'm
Right.
open to talking to them about that at any time, or sort of navigating the process of getting a diagnosis and what therapies are out there. We're happy to answer those questions.
Okay. Now, how does a parent go about getting a diagnosis?
Usually it starts with them going to their doctor and communicating that they might have concerns, or like members of the school team might have pointed out that there's some concerns. Those community partners can play a big role. From there, then they would start to see a pediatrician, and then they would start to make the referral to the diagnostic.
What are some of the things in particular, like characteristics, Laurel, that they might?
Usually you might see a lack of communication, a lack of eye contact. There's often excesses that we're seeing, so lots of tantruming or aggression, rigid behavior because the child doesn't have the appropriate means to communicate.
Okay.
And so it's really great that the diagnostic criteria has changed in that there's no longer the Asperger's diagnosis. It's just this autism spectrum, because it narrows the focus and helps align the criteria a little bit better in terms of what the clinician's going to look for when they do the diagnosis.
Okay, great. What would you say to any family who suspects their child might be on the spectrum? Like, what should they do first? Go to the doctor?
Go to the doctor.
Okay.
Absolutely, go to the doctor.
And making notes too of what their concerns are.
Like keeping track of the
keeping
patterns.
track, yeah.
Okay.
Because when you go to a professional, it's daunting. And so if you can reflect back on your journal and resources, or take video and have those pieces to demonstrate some of your concerns, that can provide a lot of perspective.
In terms of the video can be very powerful. We use it, we were talking about the parent piece. A lot of times we'll video a child having their intervention and then send it home with the parents so that they can watch what we're doing and see the strategies we're using. That's just one of the things we're doing to try and bridge that gap.
Yeah.
And it's a great way to see growth too. So for any child, you take the video of when they're 2, and then when they're 10, you're like, wow, look at that.
Well, again, you talked about using technology. So hopefully with the new building, we'll bring new technologies and we'll make your jobs easier.
That would be
Well,
awesome.
thank you so much for joining us today. It's really been wonderful to have you and to drill down a little bit farther into the autism program at the Child Development Association in Comox Valley, and for sharing all the information with us, because I know it is sadly, it seems to be growing. The number of children with autism or on the spectrum is growing, and it's wonderful to know that there are individuals and professionals like you out there fighting the good fight.
Thanks very much.
You've been watching In Conversation with the Child Development Association and specifically the Autism Program. So I'd like to thank April Statz for joining us and Laurel Rankin for joining us. Thank you so much for your time today. It's been wonderful to have you.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching.